Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Her Story TV and the Her Story podcast. This is Getrude Matshe here in beautiful Melbourne, Australia. And today I am graced with the presence of yet another fascinating woman. Welcome, welcome, welcome to our tribe. Please tell everybody your full name, where you're based, how old you are, and share your story with us today.
Hey, Getrude. I am Karen Ann Bulluck, and I am joining you from the beautiful state of New Jersey in the United States. I'm in the western part of New Jersey, where it is beautiful with rolling hills, not at all what a lot of people think of as New Jersey. I am 59 years old. I just celebrated my birthday yesterday, as a matter of fact, and I am really excited to be here tonight. You asked me to share a pivotal story in my life, and I'm going to go back a few years for that story because it really is where my life changed direction completely. I told a little bit of the story in my video that I shared with all of you about the power of giving, but I'm going to give you a little bit more background now. So I was fairly early in my career. I was a training specialist at the time, and I was specializing in training for this online service back in the days before the internet. So I'm really dating myself, but it was a really powerful online service, but it wasn't all that easy to use. And so that's why I did training for customers on it. Well, one day my boss goes to a trade show and he was at the booth, and one of the customers of this product came up to him and started telling him how incredibly horrible the software was. And he was really upset because he was very proud of it, because he was one of the developers of the software. So he told this woman, okay, look, I know you're upset, but really it's very powerful. You can do a lot of things with it. So this is what I'm going to do for you. I am going to send my best trainer up to spend 2 days with you. And if you don't love this product by the time that she comes back, then I will give you your money back that you've spent on the product. So he comes back to the office the next day and he tells me this story. And I was just like, oh boy. Okay, thank you, boss. I'm really excited about going into this horrendously difficult situation. But of course I did, because that was my job. And it was one of those situations where I was supposed to be at the time that I was supposed to be there. And as I mentioned in my video, I was completely in flow when I did this training. And it was the most powerful, incredible training I've ever done. I really connected with the people there. They completely loved it. And of course, by the time I left, they loved the product, and they were our best users for several years after that. But what that situation did, it really changed the entire trajectory of my life, because up until that point, I had taken in all the disempowering stories that I had learned, from my mother, and I loved my mother to death, but she was a stay-at-home mom, although she had had a career before I was born. But she believed that women should only be stay-at-home moms. And even though I went to college, I was taught that I was supposed to go to college as a backup plan, so that in case something happened to my husband, I could take care of myself. And actually, honestly, I was pretty much on board with that plan until this situation happened. And I went up there and I realized how, that I had a talent, that I really had the ability to connect with people and teach them and help them grow and give them valuable tools, and that I had more to offer than just to be a stay-at-home mom. Not that there's anything wrong with being a stay-at-home mom. I really appreciate the women that do that. But it wasn't my path. And I think this particular story really enabled me to realize that this wasn't my path, and that I had so much more to give, and that I wanted to give it. And from that moment on, my kind of focused more on my career. I focused on what I could contribute, not only at work, but in other parts of my life. And it really changed the way I thought about my life and the way the rest of my life was going to unfold.
That's an incredible story, Karen. First of all, I want to say happy birthday to you.
Thank you.
I might just sing you a little song. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Karen. Happy birthday to you. Now,
Thank
the
you.
reason why I ask women to share their age is because I collapsed with heart failure at the age of 49. I'm turning 55 this year, and every single year is a celebration for me. And I want women to own that age, the wisdom that we've gained. So thank you so much for being here. So happy to be sharing your birthday with you.
Well, thank you. That was the most beautiful rendition of the birthday song that I heard this year. So thank you.
It's a pleasure. Now, the one thing that I get from your presentation is just you have this ability to just step into the space and do what's required. Now, that takes a certain skill. Unpack that for us. There could be a young woman right now who's challenged in the position they're in. They have no idea what they're supposed to be doing. How did you develop this way of being? Because it is a way of being.
Well, I think the story that I just told you was probably the beginning of me being able to do that, right? And for me, it's really just having the confidence and just doing it. I mean, that situation that I was in, being able to turn those people around, coming back and having such a big success in that situation gave me so much confidence as a young woman. And it just said to me, look, if you could go into that situation and do that,
yes,
you can probably do just about anything. And so it's really, for me, it's just a matter of doing it. You have to just do it, because the more you think about it in your head ahead of time, the harder it gets, because you create all these stories around it. So you can't let yourself tell stories around it. You just have to step in and own it and do it.
I absolutely love it. Now, there's different types of leadership. Your particular type of leadership is called Transcendent Leadership. Can you explain that to those of us who want to learn more about leadership?
Well, Transcendent Leadership is based on, I'm not sure you're familiar with Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
Yes.
Right. So originally, most of us were taught that there were 5 stages to that. But actually later in his life, he added a 6th stage to it called Transcendence or Self-Transcendence. And that was when he realized that we actually had access to a higher level of consciousness. And he called it the highest and most inclusive level of consciousness that's available to humans. And so what he felt at that point is, if you could really tap into that higher level of consciousness, that you could rise above, which is literally what transcend means, rise above. You could rise above the limitations of the human consciousness, of how we normally operate, and create something that was, basically miraculous, that was full of wisdom and love and joy and all the things that we really ultimately, what we really aspire to as human beings, or at least what I think we aspire to as human beings.
All right. So if there is a young woman who's in the corporate world right now, is trying to climb that corporate ladder, and you could give her 3 nuggets of wisdom. Let's go back as if you're talking to your younger self.
Yeah.
What would you have wanted somebody to tell you about life before you got to this point?
Well, for me, connection is everything. And you've got to be connected to that higher level of consciousness, however you refer to it. I mean, people call it universal consciousness, the universe, source, nature, God. There's all kinds of words that people use for it. But you really need to tap into that consciousness. Take time every day to really be still and center yourself and listen to that consciousness, listen to that inner wisdom that you have. We are in such a place of go, go, go all the time. You have to accomplish everything. And I think one of the biggest takeaways that I've learned over the course of my career and my life is that you need to take the time to slow down and plug in. And it doesn't have to be going all the time, because that actually ultimately slows you down, if you believe it or not, because you get all in your head. And if we are operating entirely from our heads, and yes, we have great mental capacity, but it's not everything. And when we really slow down and we listen, that is one of the most important things that people can do. For instance, I always made sure, well, after a while, I always made sure that I took a break at lunchtime at work. If I could, take a walk outside, go for a drive, get out of the office space, do something to get away from it, because that just helped me reset and get into a better mindset for the rest of the day.
That's awesome. So now let me teleport you into the future. And the reason why I'm disappearing each time you answer my question is because I want to grab your little sound bites and repurpose them and put them on our TikTok account. So I'm not deserting you. I'm here listening. I just want you to have the stage.
I'm good.
So I'm going to take you now into your future. You're 100 years old. And you can have a conversation with that older woman who has guided you, because what you're saying basically is, we have all this information. It's in us.
Yeah.
But it's when you get really still that it percolates and your future self guides you to the future.
Yeah.
So if you could have a conversation with her, and you're 100, you're sitting in your rocking chair, surrounded with your dogs, your cats, your children, what would you say to that amazing woman?
I would say thank you. Thank you for the guidance. Thank you for encouraging me to really live to my fullest potential. It's so easy sometimes just to sit back and say, well, I've done enough. But that 100-year-old woman is inspiring me to be worthy of her and to do things that she can tell stories about when she's 100. And I'm so grateful to her for wanting me to express myself, to live up to my potential, to do things that are really important in life. And I feel like I'm on the brink of trying to do things that are really important now. And I'm excited about that. And I appreciate her love and support from the future.
Oh, I love that. I absolutely love that. Now, all of this must have come from somewhere, right? What was your upbringing? Your parents, your grandparents? This came from the way you were raised. Am I wrong?
A little bit, you're wrong. I guess there was sort of a mix in the way I was raised. First of all, my parents were very supportive, and I did well in school, and they supported that, and they supported me excelling in things. So from that standpoint, absolutely yes. But on the other hand, my parents were pretty conservative. So they were not people that rocked the boat. I would say that kind of rocking the boat probably came from my grandmother, my mother's mother, as much as anything else, because she was pretty feisty. So I think I get some of that from her. Both of my grandmothers were pretty feisty in their own way. So I think it kind of came from a combination of things. I don't think there was any one thing. And obviously in my young adult life, my boss at work was very instrumental in helping me grow and see my potential. So I think it was more than just my upbringing. I think it was a combination of things.
Okay, but I like the fact that your grandmother had a hand in that. It sounds like she was a true disruptor.
She was a character.
Tell us a little bit about your because I have a grandmother story too. My grandmother is literally the person who shaped who I am. The entrepreneurial side of me comes from my mom, but the creative side, my grandmother was a potter. She could throw pots without a wheel and they would come out
Ooh.
so perfect. And yeah, I regret that I didn't learn a lot more from her than I did.
Mm.
So she died when I was 24. I just had my second child. And yeah, I have regrets that when I was younger, I didn't pay attention to her craft.
Mm.
The thing that she did really instill in me is the power of storytelling.
Okay.
She could hold you in the palm of her hands with her stories. So what was it about your grandmother that was so unusual that you think you picked up on?
Well, she grew up, I called her Nana, and she grew up in the Pine Barrens of New Jersey as a farmer. And she was one of, I think, 13 kids or 12, a family ultimately that didn't really have a lot of resources. And she actually left her family and went to a neighboring town and helped take care of a family's children so that she could go to high school in the neighboring town and have a chance to better herself. And her husband unfortunately died very young, and she then went to work in an insurance agency, and she just kept pushing to better herself and to make a good life for herself and for her daughter. And sometimes I didn't always agree with her methodology, but I certainly admired her spunk and her initiative in really, probably doing the best she could for herself and really putting herself out there. She learned to paint ceramics very late in her life. So she had artistic, so she always did something different throughout her life. And that, I guess, is what I really admire about her. And my mom did too. So actually, both of them.
You had two very strong female figures in your life.
Yeah.
It is amazing what they did pass down to us. And we get to choose which bits of them that we incorporate in our lives, right?
Yeah.
So is there anything I should have asked you, Karen, that I have left out?
Well, I guess the only other thing I wanted to add is in addition to coaching, which I'm doing with Transcendent Leadership and my business called Transcendence, I've also written a fiction book called Ascending Ladders, which is about a female who is on a journey in leadership in a corporation and how she incorporates some of that stillness and inner listening and her spiritual journey in her work, which I really loved. And I'm working now on writing the sequel to it. So writing is, in addition to my coaching and my corporate work, I also really like to write. And I have been writing stories, to your point, storytelling in the fiction form to help people relate to and be inspired by different kinds of leadership.
I love that. So what was the decision to fictionalize your writing?
I started writing a book about leadership, and it was so one-dimensional. I have to say, it was so one-dimensional. And I wanted to bring in stories from different people. And
so these are experiences that you've gone through, right, along your leadership journey.
Some of them were my experiences. Some of them were other people's experienries. So, I mean, that was the beauty of fiction, is that I could bring lots of different people's experiences, not just my own, into the book. And I could do it in a way that I thought was easier for people to read. I personally like to read fiction rather than, reading, something dry. And I thought it would be more interesting and more fun and more inspiring to have it as fiction. Plus, like you said, I could bring in different points of view with fiction. And that's what I think that's what I really enjoy about it.
Okay. Well, that's absolutely awesome. And so where can people contact you? Where can people get your books, Karen?
Well, my books are on Amazon.
Mhm.
And my author name is Karen Ann Bulluck, and my website, if you want to get in touch with me, is livingalifeofmeaning.com. So it's pretty
Oh,
easy. Just livingalifeofmeaning.com is my website. And you can get in touch with me there
I'm
too,
going to
or I'm
share
on
that.
LinkedIn.
I'm going to share that at the bottom of the screen now so that people can have this on the video. But that's beautiful. Livingalifeofmeaning.com.
Yep,
Yeah, it sounds to me like you are on a purposeful journey,
very much
and a
so.
lot of people are on a quest to find meaning, to find their purpose. Really wonderful to watch you in action. Thank you so much for this interview.
Well, thank you for having me. I really enjoyed it. And I can't wait to see what you do next either.
And thank you to everybody who's tuned in today. The Her Story movement is attracting some of the most phenomenal women on the planet. I just feel so blessed to have found you, Karen. Thank you so much for today.
Well, thank you. I'm blessed to be here.
Bye-bye, everybody. I'll be back again tomorrow with yet another amazing guest. In the meantime, have a fantastic day, morning, or evening, wherever you are in the world. And Karen, don't go away. I will just end my broadcast so I can catch up with you.